Welcome to my channel, and today we are going to talk about the serial killer named Issei. On April 26, 1949, Issei Sagawa was born. He also had cannibalistic tendencies and a fascination with eating human flesh for as long as he could remember. He thought fondly of the time his uncle had dressed up as a monster and had dropped him and his sibling into a stew pot. He was drawn to fairy tales about people being eaten, and Hansel and Gretel was one of his favorites. He even remembers thinking, looks delicious, when he saw his first-grade classmate's thighs. He equates his dreams of cannibalism with what most people would call sexual desire, blaming the media's portrayal of Western ladies like Grace Kelly. Sagawa had dreams of eating these lovely women, whereas other individuals would have dreamed of bedding them. Issei Sagawa claims that anyone who doesn't have the same cravings as him will not be able to understand or explain the motivations behind his cannibalistic tendencies. It's just a fetish, he declared. For instance, if a typical man liked a female, he would naturally want to see her frequently, be near her, smell her, and kiss her. Eating to me is merely a continuation of it. Since everyone should have the need to eat and consume others, I find it incomprehensible. But he insists that he never considered killing them, merely gnawing on their flesh. His legs looked like pencils, he writes in his best-selling novel In the Fog, and he was always short and slender. He also thought that, at just under 5 feet tall, he was too unattractive to elicit the kind of physical intimacy that might have restrained his cravings. Although Sagawa did make an attempt to consult a doctor for his impulses when he was 15 years old, he found it ineffective and furthered his isolation in his mind. After suppressing his desires for 32 years, he eventually gave in to them in 1981. Issei Sagawa relocated to Paris to attend the Sorbonne, a public research institution, to study literature. He claimed that once there, his drive to eat people seized control. In The Fog, he described how almost every night I would bring a prostitute home and then try to shoot them from behind. It changed from wanting to eat them to becoming obsessed with performing this ritual of killing a girl under any circumstances. Sagawa was a student at the Sorbonne who was taking classes with René Hartevelt, a Dutch student. Sagawa became friends with her over time and periodically invited her to supper at his house. He eventually earned her trust. Before killing her, he made a failed first effort to kill her. When she turned her back, the gun accidentally fired the first time. Though most would interpret this as a warning to give up, Sagawa was further driven deeper into his rabbit hole. It exacerbated his hysteria, and he realized that killing her was the only option. He did it the very following night. This time, Hartevelt was instantaneously dead when the gun went off. Sagawa only briefly felt regret before he was thrilled. He remembered, I considered calling an ambulance. But then I reasoned, hang on, don't be foolish. It's finally happening for you after 32 years of fantasizing about it. He killed her, then raped her corpse and started to tear her open. I started by slicing into her buttock. Whatever depth I cut, all I could see was the fat layer under the skin. It took some time to get to the red flesh, and it looked like maize at first, Sagawa recounted. I tore a chunk off with my fingers as soon as I spotted the meat and shoved it into my mouth. For me, it was a very momentous occasion. In the end, he admitted that his sole regret was not eating her while she was still alive. I really wanted to consume her living flesh, he admitted. Nobody believes me, but my ultimate goal wasn't necessarily to kill her, it was to eat her, he said. Sagawa destroyed Hartevelt's body parts 2 days after killing her. He packed her legs, torso, and head into 2 luggage and called a cab because the majority of her pelvic area had been eaten or frozen. He was dropped off at the Bois de Boulogne Park, where there was a quiet lake. He had intended to place the luggage inside of it, but numerous witnesses observed the bloody suitcases and called the French police. When Sagawa was located by police and interrogated, his response was a straightforward admission, I killed her to eat her flesh, he stated. Issei Sagawa spent 2 years in a French prison as he awaited his trial. When the time came for his trial, French Judge Jean-Louis Bruguière dismissed the accusations against him and ordered that he be kept in a mental facility indefinitely after ruling that he was legally ill and unable to stand trial. He was then deported back to Japan, where he was to live out the remainder of his days in a mental facility. He didn't, though. The court records had been sealed, so they couldn't be given to Japanese authorities because the charges in France had been dismissed. As a result, the Japanese were powerless to bring charges against Issei Sagawa and were forced to let him go free. Issei Sagawa also checked himself out of the Tokyo Matsuzawa Psychiatric Hospital on August 12, 1986. Since then, he has been unchained. Issei Sagawa is currently unrestricted and free to go about his daily life in Tokyo. When one learns that the prospect of life in prison hasn't done anything to control his appetites, it is a terrible concept. Around June, when women start wearing less and showing more skin, he remarked, the desire to eat people becomes so intense. Just today, on my way to the train station, I spotted a female with a pretty lovely rear. When I witness things like that, I consider wanting to eat someone else one last time before I pass away. Sagawa, however, has abstained from cannibalism in the interim. However, it hasn't stopped him from making money off of his crime. He had success giving lectures about his impulses and criminality and published restaurant reviews for the Japanese magazine Spa. And he has 20 books to his credit as of now. Extremely intimate fantasies of beautiful girls, his most recent book, is replete with illustrations created by both him and well-known artists. He expressed his hope that readers would at least cease viewing him as a monster. Sagawa passed away on November 24, 2022 due to complication of pneumonia. Luckily he doesn't walk free anymore. Stay safe and thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video.